All right, this week we are in Chukat. Say Chukat. I'm going to work it up. Chukat. Try again. Chukat. Okay, it means, they translate it as statute or law, but it's not. It is an engraved, carved image. A painting, a drawing, a carving. It's something very, very clear. It's a picture. But they translate it as a law, as a statute. Well, in this Torah portion, there's a lot of water. Water everywhere throughout this Torah portion. We're going to look at one specific thing. Now, we're going to do some review from last week and the week before, because they're still in Kadesh. The Jews are still in the city, the town of Kadesh, in the wilderness. So we're in Numbers. It's actually not Numbers. It's, in Hebrew, it's Bamidbar. Bamidbar. Say Bamidbar. I'm going to teach you more about this, which means in the wilderness. The whole book is in the wilderness. And remember, they spent the whole 40 years 38 of those years at Kadesh in the wilderness. Then the sons of Israel, in chapter 20, the whole congregation came to the wilderness of Tzion in the first month, and the people stayed at Kadesh. So they stayed at Kadesh. They didn't just wander in and start wandering around. They stayed there, and they stayed there for 38 years. There was no water for the congregation, and they assembled themselves against Moshe and Aaron. The people thus contended or fought with Moshe, and they spoke, saying, "If only we had perished, if only we had died when our brothers died before the Lord. Why then have you brought the Lord's assembly into this wilderness?" Say Midbar. Say Midbar. That's wilderness. "For us and our beasts to die here. Why have you made us come up from Egypt to bring us into this wretched place? There's no water to drink." Then the glory, now remember, there's over 1 million people, and there's no water that they know of. Then the glory of the Lord appeared to them, and the Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, verse 8, "Take the rod, you and your brother Aaron assemble the congregation and speak to the rock before their eyes, so it may yield its water." Just speak to it. "You shall thus bring forth water for them out of the rock, and let the congregation and their beasts drink." So Moshe took the rod from before the Lord, just as he had established for him. And Moshe and Aaron gathered the assembly before the rock, and he said to them, "Listen now, you rebels, shall we bring forth water for you out of this rock?" Then Moshe lifted up his hand, and he struck the rock twice with his rod. Absolutely the wrong picture. And just for doing this wrong picture, he couldn't go in to see the land of Israel. For doing a wrong picture. Struck the rock twice with his rod, and water came forth abundantly, and the congregation and their beasts drank. Those were the waters of the fight, Meribah, because the sons of Israel fought with the Lord, and he proved himself holy among them. Now, he proved himself holy among them by giving them water, even though everybody did everything wrong. They fought with the Lord. They didn't believe in the Lord. They said we should die. Everything the Jews said was wrong, and everything Moshe did was wrong. And God still showed himself holy by being merciful and gracious and giving water to 1 million plus people, plus all their animals. That's God being holy. Here's what it looked like in the wilderness. Bamidbar. Say Bamidbar. Bamidbar. In the wilderness is the name of the book in Hebrew. And these are the camps where they're laid out. Moshe and Aharon are camped with their families, and what we're talking about, maybe 1,000 people. Camped here in front of the tabernacle. The priests on the south, Merari and Gershon, the Levites, on the west and the north. And then the tribes around it. So this is an enormous amount of space and land that it takes up. But here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the Midbar, the wilderness, and the other words in the Bible for desert. In Isaiah 40, which is a passage that God keeps bringing me back to and back to and back to my whole walk with God. Even though I'm not an evangelist, I'm not even close to an evangelist, this is the evangelist passage. This is the passage that defines what evangelism is. Nachamu, nachamu ami, comfort, oh comfort my people. Speak kindly to Jerusalem. So that's how it starts. And then it says in verse 3, a voice is calling. Clear the way for the Lord in the wilderness. Clear the derech. Clear it. Make it smooth. Make it clear. For the Lord in the midbar. Make smooth in the desert, and that's another word I'm going to teach you, a highway for our God. Now in Hebrew it says, Kol Koreh Bamidbar. And here it is in Hebrew. Kol Koreh Bamidbar. A voice calls out. A call calls out in the wilderness. That's the word for preaching. A preacher preaches in the wilderness, is basically what it's saying. So whatever is in the wilderness is what preaches to us the gospel. And then in verse 9, in the wilderness, and here's another word for desert I'm going to teach you, get yourself up on a high mountain, Zion, Tzion, bearer of the gospel. God tells, in the desert, in the wilderness, God tells Judaism or Jerusalem to get lifted up on a high mountain to bear the gospel. Jerusalem, Judaism, the cycle of the festivals, the kosher laws, the new moon, the Sabbath, the festivals, all preach the gospel. But it has to be from Jerusalem. It has to be from Judaism. That's the gospel. And it teaches us everything we need to know about God. And it's in the desert. And it's only in the desert. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. It's only in the desert. Now, I had a real hard time with this whole teaching that we've been doing for the last few weeks about Kadesh. Because in my mind, this is what the Bible looked like. I couldn't get over the river to the other side. Why? Because that's all Muslim territory over there, by God, and we don't go over there. Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Syria, who needs that? So I didn't go over there in my mind when I'm reading the Bible. But I was wrong, dead wrong. And actually, the entire book of Numbers, Bamidbar, happens on this side of the river. The whole book, from beginning to end, happens Bamidbar, in the wilderness. Say it again. I don't know what that means. Yes, the diaspora is a picture of the same thing. Yes, that's correct. Not in the land, out of the land, exiled from the land, the wilderness. So the entire book of Bamidbar is Midbar. It's wilderness. It's in the wilderness. The entire book from beginning to end. And I couldn't understand the book of Bamidbar until I went over to the other side of the river and started studying this over here. And by the way, this is 1/5 of the land of Saudi Arabia. It's enormous. Now, in the Bible, it comes all the way out here, about 100 miles into Saudi Arabia and what's now Jordan. So, you're going to have to get your mind over to the other side. We've still got 2 more Torah portions left in this book. You're going to have to get your mind to the other side of the river if you haven't already. So here's a review. They arrived at Sinai on 3rd month, 3rd day. They stayed there 11 months and 10 days. They left Sinai, Mount Sinai, on 2/20. That's 11 months later. 11 months, 10 days. They traveled 11 months from Sinai to Kadesh. So they go in the Exodus down here to Mount Sinai in Arabia. They're there for 11 months. Then they travel from Sinai to Kadesh for another 11 months. It should have been 11 days. And we're given a few of the camps as they're traveling from Sinai to Kadesh. We're given a few of the camps. Tabera, Kibrot Hata'ava, Chatzerot, and then Miriam dies. That means they're in Kadesh. And we're given 19 total camps from Mount Sinai up to Kadesh. 19 total camps. How long did it take to get from Sinai to Kadesh?
11 days.
Wrong, not 11 days. 11 months. How long should it have taken them? 11 days. How long were they at Mount Sinai?
11 months.
11 months. How long did it take to get from Sinai to Kadesh?
11 months.
11 months. How long should it have taken them?
11 days.
11 days. Good. How long were they at Kadesh? Wait,
48 years.
we haven't gotten there yet. Okay, so then D, we get to the wilderness of Paran and Kadesh. And then at the wilderness of Paran, at Kadesh, nothing good happens, only bad. The 12 spies are sent out.
No.
What are they? Apostles. The 12 apostles are sent out from Kadesh. They come back to Kadesh. They give a bad report. And God says on the 9th of Av, you are doomed to die in this wilderness. You're going to stay here for 40 years, almost 40 years, until the whole generation is dead. Then the rebellion of Korach that we saw last week. The earth opened up and swallowed 250 people. And then right after that, a plague of 14,700. 15,000 plus people died at Kadesh. Then Aaron's authority is proven, which is not good. God did that because they were arguing about Aaron being the high priest. We want to be the high priest. So God said, okay, we're choosing him. And then he cursed the guys who rebelled. Another bad thing. Then Miriam dies. Then Moshe strikes the rock. And that's where we're at today. And what is it called? What did he call it because they fought with the Lord? Starts with an M. Come on. Meribah. Thank you, Daniel. Meribah. Well, remember, they did the same thing back at Sinai, Mount Sinai. They fought with the Lord. He brought forth water, so he named that place Kadesh. Meribah also. There's two Meribahs, one at Mount Sinai, one at Kadesh. Same exact thing happened twice. Okay, so Israel stays at Kadesh for 38 years. They did not wander in the desert for 40 years. Stayed in Kadesh for 38 years. Why? Because we wait for the generation to die. Also, it was the ultimate picture of unbelief because they could not enter into the land, right? No, what? Rest, which is a day, which is the seventh day, which is the kingdom. They couldn't see it, they wouldn't see it, so they couldn't go. All right, that's why they stayed there for 38 years. These are the wildernesses that are listed in the Torah, and this is the only ones. The wilderness of Shur, which was on their journey from Egypt to Sinai. They crossed the Reed Sea, and they went into the wilderness of Shur in Arabia. And then they went to Elim. Then the wilderness of Sin. But Sin is the same word as Sinai. Sin means a thorn bush. And Sinai means thorn bush. And the wilderness of Sinai means thorn bush. So when you read wilderness of Sin, all you're reading is wilderness of Sinai. That's all you're reading. It's the same wilderness, same place, same word. It's just a shortened version. So that's the wilderness of Sinai. And then the wilderness of Sinai. And then the two wildernesses that they stayed at. Zin and Paran. Or Paran and Zin. And both of them, it says, Kadesh at wilderness of Zin, Kadesh at the wilderness of Paran. So obviously, on the south side of Kadesh is the wilderness of Paran, and then the north side of Kadesh is the wilderness of Zin. It's like it's stuck in between both deserts. Does that make sense? Okay. Those are the only wildernesses in the Torah. That's it. All we have is 4. Shur, Sinai, Paran, and Zin. And all 4 of them are wilderness. So therefore, where are they?
Wilderness.
On this side of the boundary of Israel.
Saudi.
The wilderness is not in Israel, right? So all 4 wildernesses are on the other side of the Jordan, not within the boundaries of Israel.
That would have been the promised land.
That's right. It's not the promised land. They needed to get from the wilderness to the promised land. Yes?
Yes.
So if they're in the wilderness, they're shut out from the promised land.
The difference between king and the wilderness.
Now, there are deserts. Well, there's 5 words for desert in the Bible. And there are deserts and wildernesses in the land of Israel. But you don't read about any of them until King David. That's the first time you ever read of a wilderness about in the land of Israel. And we're told where they are. So that has nothing to do with what we're looking at. All right, so now we're going to look at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words. Sorry. 6 words for desert. And you need to know them all. Because you need to know what he's talking about. Look at me. If God says wilderness and he uses a certain word, you need to know if it's a wilderness in Israel or a wilderness outside of Israel. If he says the word desert, you need to know if it's in Israel or outside Israel. Does that make sense? Because if you don't, you, just like me, were thinking in the wrong place. I had my mind on the wrong side of the river for 40 years of my life. How about that? I was on the wrong side of the river for 40 years of my life. Well, you've got to know, right? You've got to know what he's talking about. So the first one is the word, well, there's 2 words in here that we're going to learn. Let's go to Deuteronomy 32. And there's 2 words for desert in this one verse. 32:10. Oh, I need my old man glasses. Can somebody grab my old man glasses? Nope, I take it back. I have them. Never mind. Thank you. 32:10. He, God, found him, Israel, in a desert land and in the howling waste of a wilderness. He encircled him, he cared for him. God found Israel in a desert and a wilderness, and God cared for him, surrounded him like with wings, like a bird. There's 2 words here. One is midbar. We already know what midbar is. What does midbar mean? No, it does not mean desert. Yes, wilderness. They translate it as desert. It's not. It's wilderness. So, here's the deal. You need to change what you think about wilderness. It doesn't mean nothing there. It means, it comes from the word, well, it is the word midbar, and it comes from the word davar, which means to lead sheep to pasture. What does that tell you is in a wilderness? Pasture. Grass. The best example I've ever seen is Colorado. I used to live in Colorado Springs. And outside of Colorado Springs at Fort Carson, we lived there too. There was these, it looked like half desert, half vegetation. Very sparse vegetation, but vegetation. Enough so that cows and sheep could eat there. But it looked, for all the world, like El Paso, like desert. But there was enough there to support animals. And that's what I picture. So it's got to be something that'll support animals. That's a wilderness. A plain country fit for flocks. Now the word that they translate as wilderness is not wilderness. It's desolation. Desolation. It's yeshimon. Say Yeshimon.
Shimon.
Say Yeshimon.
Shimon.
Means desolation, yes.
The bar. Wouldn't that also be word?
I don't know. I don't know if it's the same word. I didn't look at that. So Yeshimon, it means like what you picture as Saudi Arabian desert. That's Yeshimon. I mean, just sand, rocks, dirt. Now let's go to Psalm 79:40. Psalm 79, whoop, there is no 79:40. 78:40 maybe. Yeah, 78:40. Sorry about that, 78:40. How often they rebelled. Now it's talking about the Israel in the wilderness. What is wilderness? What is wilderness? Midbar. And what is it? What does it mean?
Desolation.
No, pasture land. Wilderness means pasture land. And it's talking about Israel in the wilderness. How often they rebelled against him in the wilderness. Now this is the word midbar. And grieved him in the desert. And this is Yeshimon. So that should be translated as what?
Barrenness.
Desolation. Desolation. We're just going to keep doing it until you get it. That's fine. All right. So they're in the wilderness. What is wilderness? What should you picture?
Pasture land.
Pasture land. And Yeshimon, what does that mean?
Desert.
Desolation. Desolation. We haven't gotten to desert yet. You notice that? We haven't gotten to any of the words that should properly be translated desert. We've gotten to pasture land, translated wilderness, and desolation. Isaiah 35. Here's the next one. The wilderness and the desert are glad. Desert will rejoice and blossom. This says the wilderness and the desert will be glad. The Arabah will rejoice and blossom. So we got three words here. Mine says wilderness and the desert will be glad. The Arabah will rejoice and blossom. I have New American Standard. So here's what they are. The first one is Yeshimon. What does Yeshimon mean? Desolation. Good. And the desolation and the desert, that's midbar. What is midbar? Wilderness or pasture. Wilderness or pasture land, and it can be wilderness, that's fine. And then the third one, translated in some of your Bibles, I'm sure, as desert, that's good translation. This is Arabah. Arabah.
Like Arabia.
Like Arabia, yes. This is where the word Arabs came from. Arav, Arav. It means to wander far away. To wander far away, like Arabs. You know how they go in a big tent and they travel all over? What are they called? Bedouin. The Bedouin. The Bedou. They travel, they wander far away. They are Arabs. It's the word Arav. Now, this is in Israel. Anytime it says Negev in the Bible, it is not out in the wilderness. It's in Israel. The Negev is, even today, it's the south of Israel, within the borders of Israel. So Negev is Israel. What does Yeshimon mean? What does Yeshimon mean? Desolation. And what does Midbar mean? Wilderness or pasture. Pasture. And Negev, what does it mean? Desert. This is just plain old desert. Plain old desert, to wander away like the Arabs. It means an arid, sterile land. In other words, desert. This is just a regular old word, desert. An arid or sterile area, a desert. Okay, now to the passage I read earlier, Isaiah 40. Verse 3. Kol koreh b'midbar. A voice is calling. Clear the way for the Lord in the, what do you think it says? Wilderness? Midbar? It says desert, Arabah. Where is that?
Arabia.
No.
Negative.
Where is that?
Israel.
Let's keep it simple, guys. In
Israel.
Israel.
The land.
If it says Negev, you are in Israel automatically. What does Yeshimon mean? Desolation. Good. What does Midbar mean? Wilderness or pasture land. Good. What does Arava mean?
Desert.
Where is it?
Israel.
Israel. Good.
Southern.
Right? So let's read this again. Verse 3. A voice is calling. Clear the derech, the way, for the Lord in the Negev. Where is that?
Israel.
In Israel. This is talking about Israel. It's not talking about the Jews in the wilderness. It's talking about Israel. Make smooth in the desert a highway for our God. Now the word desert here, guess what it is? Negev. Negev. All right. And then it talks about Zion, which is the other word for desert. Zion means desert. Look at verse 7. The grass withers, the flower fades when the breath of the Lord blows upon it. Surely the people are grass. The grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God stands forever. Get yourself up on a high mountain, Tzion. Now, I'm going to try to get you to say Zion properly. Listen to me.
Tzion.
It's not easy to say. Listen. Tzion. 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 T-Z. Tzion. And it means a sunny place, a sunny mountain. It comes from the word tzia, which means to be sunny, arid, or drought. Which other Hebrew word means arid, or sterile, or drought? No. Arabah. Arabah. Good. Arabah. Arabah. And where is the Arabah? Now, Arabah,
Yes.
it moved. The word Arabah is the Negev. It's the desert of the Negev. The Arabah is the desert of the Negev. Just because it comes from the same word as Arab doesn't mean it's in Arabia. Although it is. But in the Bible, when it says Arabah, that is in Israel. It is not in the wilderness. I got a ring on this thing, it's just not going away. Test, test. Say it again. I can't hear you. Is what in Arabia? Arabah is both in Israel. It is the Arabah in Israel and in Arabia and in Africa and in Asia and in America, all over. It's a desert. But in the
Turn it down.
we need to fix this. I got a ring on it. Okay. So if it says Arabah in the Bible, where are you?
Israel.
Israel, period. Okay. And Negev, the same thing. That's only in Israel. Now the word Tzion, means, I wouldn't do that.
No? Well, if it was too close, it might be feedback.
I don't think it's from that.
No. Okay.
I mean, this is the whole crux of the teaching right here. That's why this is happening. Right now, we're at the crux of the teaching, what I want to get across to you. And we're having a hard time getting there. Maybe this is test.
You'll be there 2 mics behind.
Yep.
They're hot, yeah. Dead.
This is on. Turn it
That's
off.
it. That's your problem.
Turn this off.
The other way.
Just unplug it.
Pull the plug on the bottom of the base of the lamp. All right. Don't break the bottom. Listen to me.
I disconnected it.
Listen to me. The crux of the teaching is this. You're not going to like it. You're not going to like it. I know you're not going to like it because I've been living it for 40 years and I've never met a believer that likes it, ever. You're not going to like it. But Eileen and I have found that it is probably the most important germ that you learn, germ means seed, that you learn in order to live Judaism. Not understand Judaism as pictures, but to live it. To put the rubber on the road. It's really, you are not going to like it. So I'm going to say it like this. It goes contrary to the American gospel, but it is Judaism crystallized, at least in walking out, in living. It's the crystallization of how to live a biblical life. It's only in Tzion. Look at verse 9. Get yourself up on a high mountain, O Zion, bearer of the gospel. What bears the gospel?
Jerusalem.
Zion, not Jerusalem. Zion. Not Jerusalem, not yet. In the verse, what bears the gospel?
Tzion.
Tzion. Tzion, which means a sunny place. To be sunny, arid, or drought. No, Zion. Lift up your voice mightily, O Jerusalem. Now he says, Jerusalem is Zion. O Jerusalem, bearer of the gospel. Now, if you have an understanding of pictures, you understand that Judaism is a set of pictures of everything about God. Great, that's up here. But what about life? What about living? Those of you who have come to Judaism recently, which is most of you, you're starting to feel, I want it to be like it used to be. And it's not going to be. Ever. Ever. Once you set your foot to walking a biblical walk, it is never going to be like it used to be. Because God's ways, the gospel, everything about God is only found in where?
Tzion.
Tzion, the desert. It's just another word for desert. Now there's one more, we're going to come back to this. There's one more word for desert. It's in Isaiah 48. And it says, they didn't thirst when I led them through the desert. It's a totally different word. This is the word charavot, which is the same word as yeshimon. It means, what does yeshimon mean? What does yeshimon mean? Desolation. What does arava mean?
Desert.
Just desert. Where is arava? Israel. Where is the Negev? Israel. What does midbar mean? Wilderness or pasture land. Good. What does yeshimon mean? Desolation. Now this word charavot, same exact meaning, same exact thing. Just a synonym for it. All right, so let's get back to Tzion. The word Tzion meaning desert. Meaning desert. Huh? Or sunny. Arid. Dry. Okay, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Because if this gets wasted, it's going to be very, very sad. This is one of the most important kernels you're ever going to learn, or at least hear. Whether you learn it or not is up to you, but at least hear it. You got to work to hear this. We all want to have an abundant life. We do, don't we? Everybody wants an abundant life, a full life. Well, in Hebrew, the word for abundance is shalem, and it means full or whole or peace. In Judaism, in biblical Judaism, the way God set it up, an abundant life is one thing and one thing only: knowing God. Period. Period.
That's good.
But it's bad because it requires you to let go of everything else. That's why it's in the desert. God took the Jewish people into the wilderness, the midbar, where there was nothing but a few little things for the animals to eat, to strip them down to nothing so they could see and know God and see the kingdom and get into the kingdom. But they didn't. All of us have met multiplied hundreds of thousands of believers. They're all born again. They all have the Spirit of God. But we're all stupid. We're just like sheep. We're dumb. We're just so dumb. And being a believer doesn't make you smart. It doesn't make you anything except your spirit is alive. That's it. The rest is up to us. How much you get to know that kingdom is completely and totally up to you. 100% up to you. God will, as you make efforts, God will give you and give you and give you and give you more information. But the work, the digging, the study, the understanding, the listening, the walking it out, the being consistent, that is completely up to you. And this is what we don't like. God stuck them in the desert. They went on a journey. How long was the journey from Egypt to Sinai? How long was the journey from Egypt to Sinai? No, it was not 11 months. 3 months. They came to Mount Sinai in the third month, the third day. 3 months. 3 months. And then the journey from Sinai to Kadesh. How long was that? 11 months. How long were they at Sinai?
11 months.
11 months. All right. And then they went on this journey for 11 months. And they saw everything and they saw nothing. God fed them. God cared for them. God spoke to them. God gave them Torah. God gave them the pictures gave them the tabernacle as pictures of heaven. Gave them everything, and they saw zero. And it's not because they were in the desert. They saw nothing because they saw nothing. They were in the desert so that all the distractions of life would be taken away, and they could just see the kingdom and go, I get it, and go in. Done. That's all they had to do. We're sheep. We're dumb. We're just very, very dumb. And so God, listen to me carefully. If you want to do a biblical Jewish life, you have to be stripped down. You have to be. I don't care. You have to be removed. Everything has to be removed. Listen to me carefully. So that the distractions are taken away, so that you can learn the kingdom. Yeshua went everywhere preaching the gospel of Yeshua went everywhere preaching the gospel of and then he said, why are you worried about food and clothing and drink? Get your mind on what? The kingdom. And everything will be added. The kingdom, not Jesus Christ. He didn't say, get your mind on me and all things shall be added unto thee. He said, get your mind on the kingdom. The kingdom first, and then everything. Well, same thing with the Jews in the wilderness. God stripped them of everything and then took care of them, gave them only what they needed. Only what they needed, a little bit more. And then they didn't get their eyes on the kingdom. But if they had, they could have walked right in. Could have walked right in. In 11 days. They could have walked right in. But they didn't. All right, that is the teaching. That's the crux of the teaching. Here's the 5 words for desert. Wilderness, midbar. Midbar is a plain country where sheep can graze. Yeshimon means desolation. Dun, dun, dun. Charavot means desolation. It's a synonym. Means the same thing. Arava, Arav means to wander away or just plain old, what? Desert. Just plain old desert. And then Tzion. Tzion, a sunny place, an arid place, a desert mountain. Guess what? It wasn't a desert. Tzion was not a desert. Remember Kiryat Ye'arim? Remember Kiryat Ye'arim, where David found Zion and he walked the ark 49 paces into Tzion, into the city of David? Remember that? The city of the forest. That's what Jerusalem was called. City of the forests. It was not a desert, but God made it a desert, not physically, but made it a desert with the word Tzion, so they could understand. Look, we want to go up to that big tall thing up there. Well, what is it? It's the desert. That's where God is. It's that simple. Let me say it again. There's a big tall thing there that we want to go up to find God, because God's up there. There's God. We have to go to the desert. That's the message. That's why you can believe this or not believe it, but I believe that's why we're in El Paso. And I checked this, by the way, on the internet with science. El Paso is on exactly the same latitude as the center of Jerusalem. 31.77 is the latitude. We are in exactly the same latitude. Now, I don't know what that means. Maybe it's longitude. The one that goes this way. Okay, north latitude. All right. He knows. All I know is what I read. Okay, that's right. He's a pilot. He knows what he's talking about. So, El Paso is on the same latitude as Jerusalem. I don't know really what that means. I know that it's important. I know that, listen to me please, El Paso is to be, I know that El Paso, this is my opinion, is supposed to be where pictures spreads from. It says in the Bible that the word of the Lord will go from Jerusalem, from Tzion. That the word of the Lord, that the gospel goes out from Tzion, Jerusalem. So this is my opinion, that the reason God made this my ministry pictures and stuck me in El Paso, and I've tried 1,000 times to leave and I can't leave, is because we're on the same latitude as Tzion. Now, may or may not be true, but that's what I believe so far. All right, so we got all our words for desert, yes? Yep. Yeah, you got it? Negev isn't one of the words for desert. It's a place where the desert is. Okay, got it? Are we there? Got all 5 words? Yep. Let's do it again. All right. So here's the pattern. I'm not going to go through all these. I just wrote it down. Here's the pattern. The pattern is you got to go into the desert to meet God. That means you got to lose your money. Some of you missed that. Okay, I won't repeat it. So You got to go into the desert to meet God, which means you're going to lose your money.
Okay.
You're going to lose your money. God's going to strip you. Listen to me. God's going to strip you. I've been doing this for 40 years. I'm not just talking. I'm telling you what I've learned. Eileen and I have been doing this for 40 years. We made a decision 40 years, well, I did 40 years ago. Eileen did, and I together 33 years ago, to just try to get to know God. I want to get up to that mountain to get to know God. And we've noticed that everything else gets stripped away. But God gives us exactly what we need. Exactly what we need. Sometimes a little bit more, but not often. But that's it. That's it. Listen to me carefully. That's the abundant life.
I agree.
And I know this to be true because I know God. Eileen and I know God. We know God. We know what He's saying. We know how He's saying it. We know why He's saying it. We hear Scripture in our head when anybody says something. We know God. If we ask God for something, He answers us. There was a period of time when it wasn't like that. When I thought we lost everything because I thought we lost God. A few years where I thought we were just cooked. We didn't know God, I thought. But it was God stripping us of way, way, way more. And now it's even better than it was before. So that happens too. So here's the pattern. From Egypt to Sinai. They were in Egypt where there was lots of food, right? Yes?
Yeah.
And they were taken to the Arabian desert, the wilderness of Sinai. 3-day journey, and then there were they kept saying over and over again. Moses said to Pharaoh, Pharaoh, we need to go a 3-day journey into the Midbar to meet God. To meet God. We need to go a 3-day journey into the Midbar. Well, are you willing to go into the Midbar to meet God? That's the question. How much are you willing to let get stripped off of you? Money mostly, but not just money. So that is the pattern. We got to go a 3-day journey into the Midbar. Well, it turned out to be 3 months. They went 3 months from Egypt to Mount Sinai to meet God. There's God on the mountain. They met Him. There He is. Then from Sinai up to Kadesh. They left Midbar in 220, the Midbar of Sinai on 220. They go up an 11-month journey to where? To where? Paran. What's its other names? Zin, Kadesh. There's 2 more. Meribah and Petra. 5 names. So they took an 11-month journey up to that place, to the wilderness. They went from wilderness to wilderness to meet God. Did they? No. That's why they couldn't get into the land. From Sinai up to Kadesh. Did they meet God in Kadesh? Did they get to know God in Kadesh? Answer me with words. So no. No. They had no faith and they didn't get into the kingdom. But they were supposed to. So the pattern is the same every single time. You go from wherever you are into the wilderness to meet God. Now, I don't want to talk about David. I'm just going to talk about it. I'm not going to read it. David found the dwelling place of God. He didn't just kind of like, hey, I like that place. Let's put God there. He found it in the field of the forest, which turned out to be Tzion. And he called it Tzion because it was God in the desert, even though it wasn't desert. But he found it. He had to go on a search for it. He spent his whole life searching for it. And then Matthew chapter 3. Let's go to Matthew 3. Before Yeshua came, The plan had already been laid out. Yohanan, the immerser, John the Baptist, was already anointed. It was his cousin of Yeshua, was already out preaching about repentance. But where was he preaching about repentance? So that Israel could come to know God in the wilderness. Now in those days, Yohanan the immerser came preaching in the Midbar of Judah. In the Midbar of Judah, saying, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. For this is the one referred to by Isaiah the prophet, saying, the voice of one crying out in the Midbar. Make ready the derech of the Lord, the way of the Lord. Make his path straight. Now John himself, I'm not going to read that. Let's go to verse 5. Then Jerusalem, all the people in Jerusalem were going out to him, and all Judah and all the district around the Jordan. They were going out to John for what purpose? To have some guy yell at them? No. What were they going there for? To find God. To get to know God. They're going out to the desert to get to know God. You guys ever heard of the Essenes? The ones who kept the Dead Sea Scrolls for us? They were in the desert, in the Midbar. And they went out there to get to know God, to separate themselves from the filth and pollution of Jerusalem. They were priests, primarily. And they lived out in the desert by themselves to get to know God. They did it in large part because of this passage in Isaiah 40.
What are they called?
Essenes. E-S-S-E-N-E-S. E-S-S-E-N-E-S. Essenes. It's a huge community at Qumran. So, there's this verse in Deuteronomy. He led you through the great and terrible Midbar, with its fiery serpents and scorpions and thirsty ground. What does Midbar mean? Wilderness or pasture ground. Yet, that pasture ground has fiery serpents and scorpions and thirsty ground. So it's a mixture. There was no water. He brought water for you out of the rock of flint. Where did he bring forth water from the rock? Where? In the Meribah, where else? Sinai, where else? Kadesh. We can keep saying names. Selah, Petra, Meribah, Kadesh, Barnea. What's the other one? I can't hear you. Paran, Zin. And he did it twice. He did it at Sinai, and he did it at Kadesh. 2 times, same thing happened. God brought forth water from the rock. Where? In the wilderness. I can't seem to get this across to you. Your minds are wandering. Picture yourself in church. I'm going to nail this down no matter what it takes. Picture yourself in church, and people are saying, Holy Spirit, I want you. Holy Spirit, come to me. Holy Spirit, speak to me. I want your refreshing water. Where is the water?
In the desert.
In the desert. But they think, and you thought, that you're in an oasis where God just showers rain upon you and you get the abundant life with everything you want. Right?
It's a bait and switch.
It's a lie. It's a lie. And the reason it's a lie is because who the heck wants to go to the desert? It's that simple. Nobody wants this.
That's the acid test.
I've been saying for many years the same thing. I've been saying, like, why don't we grow? Why doesn't people buy my artwork? Why don't people buy my stuff, my books, and complaining, right? And I've been saying this for years, and then Eileen will say something, and I'll go, oh, I know what it is. I'm selling a product nobody wants.
Right.
And that's the bottom line. So is John. The truth is, if you really want to know God, and it's up to you, if you really want to know God, you got to go to the desert. You got to go where you're stripped of everything else, and you've got no cell phone.
No Facebook.
No cell phone. No cell phone. Because we don't need God anymore. We got cell phones. Eileen and I were traveling from El Paso to Florida for me to go to teach in a church because I had a message for them. And I did. God had spoken to me something really, they weren't going to like it. God spoke to me something really clearly for this church in Florida. And for some bizarre reason, they actually asked me to go teach there. So we were on our way. I had a car that fit all our kids in the back, and Eileen and I, and it was the best car we ever had. And we're driving on the road, and we start hearing this. The transmission dropped out of the car in Baton Rouge on our way to go preach the word of God. Dropped out in Baton Rouge. There was this way before cell phones existed. What do? You know how much money we had in our pocket? What do we have, like $25 or something? 50? 80 something bucks we had. We have 80, and nothing in our, we had no savings. We had no money in the checking account. We had 80 bucks, 80 some bucks. And we're stuck in Baton Rouge, and we got to get a new transmission, and I got to get to Florida, and I got to teach in Florida. What do you do? So the kids were running up and down on this big pile of seashells in Baton Rouge, and I'm pacing like a madman because I just, all I can do is pray. I don't know what to do. I'm like, Eileen, I don't know what to do. And Eileen's like, Michael, I don't know what to do. So we prayed. God, we need help. We don't know what to do. We had no other choice. I couldn't get on the phone and call somebody because there were no cell phones, and I didn't know who to call even if I had a cell phone. Couldn't Google anything. Google didn't exist. We don't need God. We got Google. So we prayed, and we just kind of waited. And maybe a half hour later, this hooker was walking by the big front gate of the that was a miracle. We got to the transmission shop. I didn't say this. It broke down. I drove right up to a place. It was night, couldn't see anything. We woke up the next morning, and there's a transmission shop. So we got into a transmission shop. That was the first miracle, and that was a whole other thing. But we're there, and there's a hooker walking by the front gate of this transmission shop where we're standing, not knowing what to do because the transmission guy said, well, I'll tell you what, Han. He kept calling me Han. I don't know what that means. I'll tell you what, Han. Your transmission all shot to hell. And I'm like, okay, what do I do? I don't know. Give me some money. Okay, I don't know. So we're praying and praying and praying, and this hooker walks by, and I don't know what started the conversation. Maybe it was the kids running up and down the shells, something like that. Is that what it was? Well, you just have beautiful children. I don't know what it was. And so we start talking to her. She told us what to do. Solved all the problems. It was a whole list. She gave us a shopping list of what to do. And we did it. And this is what happened. We ended up with a brand new van, driving to Florida, had a 2-week vacation, got an offering from the church. We're taken on a 2-week vacation in Sarasota. We're treated like kings, sold a ton of artwork, came back with enough money to pay for the transmission and to pay our bills for the month. Isn't that amazing? And the whole reason is because we didn't have a cell phone. We had to depend on God. This was one out of 1,000 things that happened to us to train us how to walk a Jewish life. Walk a biblical Jewish life. So, if you want to do this, you can do it. It's not easy, but you get to know God, and that's the abundant life.
It's worth it.
And you got to just, I'm telling you, look, I have this, and you got to trust me. I know it's hard to do. I'm telling you, I know God. I know Him. That's one time we went to preach in, it was my very first time ever going to a church to teach. It was in Marion, Louisiana. And we went backwoods in Louisiana with these 100-foot tall trees and, you know, satanic stuff out in the woods and all kinds of crazy stuff. And I went for a walk with the pastor for an hour and a half. And I just let him ask me questions. I was young. I was 26 when we got married. So I was 28. No, I was 28, I think. Something like that. I was young. I didn't know anything. 28 years old. He's an older man. He's had the ministry for 30 years. And we went for a walk for like an hour and a half. And at the end, he said this to me. He said, I don't want to know about God. I want to know God like you do. And he quit the ministry. He became, ironically, a carpenter. He quit the ministry, quit the church, gave it up, so he could get to know God. And I was just a kid. Well, now I've had 35 years under my belt, and I'm still doing the same thing, still believe the same thing, in fact, stronger, and you're going to have to trust me. I know God. Eileen and I know God. Doesn't make us smart, doesn't make us pretty, but we know God, and we have an abundant life. So, God is in the desert. These are verses that say that God is in the desert. Sing praises to the Lord who dwells in Zion. Dwells in Zion. Dwells in sunny, arid desert. Psalm 74:2. That was Psalm 9:11.
That would be to rest in the desert also.
I can't tell what you're saying.
If that word dwell, that's the Hebrew word shuv, right?
Yes.
Therefore, it also means to rest in the desert.
That is correct. It's the word shuv, which means to dwell, to rest. It's to rest. God rests in the desert. Very good. Thank you. Declare his deeds. Psalm 74:2. And this Mount Zion, this sunny desert, where you, God, have dwelt. God dwells in the desert. It didn't change when Christ came. And I know you think it did. It didn't. Psalm 76:2. His tabernacle is in Shalem, his dwelling place in Tzion, in the desert. Psalm 135:21. Blessed be the Lord from Zion, who dwells in Jerusalem. That is the whole deal. The abundant life is knowing God. That's the abundant life. It's not getting stuff.
Right.
That is what the Gentiles chase after, and it led them to vanity and nothing and death. It leads to nothing to go after money. The abundant life is to know God, not know about God, not be peaceful with a lack of strife, knowing God. But whatever things were gained to me, those things I have counted as loss for the sake of Messiah. Like money, like relationships. Not relationships with your wife, other relationships. More than that, I count all things to be lost. Count all things to be lost, in view of the surpassing value of knowing God, knowing the Messiah Yeshua, my Lord, for whom I have suffered the loss of everything. That's how we suffer. We're called to suffer. That's how you suffer. Lose everything and get to know God. That's suffering. It doesn't mean you get beaten. It means you suffer the loss of stuff so you can know God. And count them as garbage that I may gain Messiah. What do you think of that? Count your stuff as garbage so you can gain Messiah. Now it's up to you. You want to do 10%, 20%, 30%, 50%, 100%? Eileen and I don't even do 100%. We've given probably, what, 80? You think? 75, 80% of us to get to know God? What do you think? You don't know? You haven't thought about it. It's up to you. Or give 0 of yourself. Give 0. Dump 0%. But I guarantee you're not going to get to know God any better than you do right now. And if right now is okay, that's fine. It's not okay for me. I want more. I want more of God. I want to know God better than I do right now. I mean, think about it. 40 years, I wouldn't get my mind on the other side of the river. I was deceived about a huge chunk of the Bible for 40 years. I want to know God better than I do. Let's pray. Father, thank you that you have given us the opportunity to know you. And you call us out to the empty, dry place where there's nothing, so we can just get to know you. And I ask that you would show us more. Lay more on each person who hears this about that truth, about Tzion, about all of your ways are in Tzion. All of your ways are in the desert. And that's why you named it Tzion, Zion. I thank you for Zion. I thank you for setting Zion on our heart. We are Lev Tzion. We are the heart of Zion. We are Zion heart. And I ask that you would let that swell up and grow in the name of Yeshua. For your whole body. Make your body dedicated to being hearts of Zion. In the name of Yeshua. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.